I just read a study about Tibetan women living at 12,500 feet in Nepal, and researchers wanted to know how menopause changes the way their bodies handle extreme altitude. It's not the kind of menopause research you see every day, but the findings actually tell us something important about how estrogen loss affects all of us, even at sea level.
Hi there, I'm Tony Lee, and this is Hot Flasher, your daily menopause podcast that serves up fresh news, research, and wellness tips. I've built a daily news pipeline to find the latest on women's health and menopause research. Allow me to introduce my co-host, Nikki, who handles the headlines. Take it away, Nikki.
Thanks, Tony. We've got some fascinating research today. A new study caught my attention because it's tackling hot flashes with a botanical approach, but doing it the right way, with an actual randomized controlled trial. The researchers tested something called a neurokinin pathway botanical antagonist. That's a mouthful, but basically they identified plant compounds that block the same brain pathways that prescription medications target for hot flashes. Here's what makes this interesting. Most botanical menopause products skip the rigorous testing phase and go straight to market with testimonials and small pilot studies. This team actually did the work. They recruited 120 women experiencing moderate to severe hot flashes and ran a proper double-blind placebo-controlled trial over 12 weeks. The results were solid. Women taking the botanical compound saw a 65% reduction in hot flash frequency compared to 23% in the placebo group. That's clinically meaningful. The kind of reduction that changes your daily life. The compound also improved sleep quality scores and didn't cause the side effects some women experience with prescription options. Now, I'm not ready to crown this as the hot flash solution. The study was industry funded, which doesn't automatically invalidate it, but means we need to see replication from independent researchers. And at 120 participants, it's reasonably sized, but not huge. Still, this is the kind of evidence your doctor would look at on a tool like open evidence, properly designed, properly powered, with clinically relevant outcomes. What I appreciate about this approach is that it takes botanical medicine seriously enough to test it rigorously. Too often, we get caught between two extremes, dismissing plant-based treatments entirely or accepting them without proper evidence. This sits in the middle ground where good science should live. The second study takes us in a completely different direction, and it's one that's been overlooked for too long. Researchers looked at the connection between adverse childhood experiences, what we call ACEs, and how women experience menopause decades later. They surveyed over 400 women going through perimenopause and menopause, asking about childhood trauma, current menopausal symptoms, and quality of life. The findings were stark. Women with higher ACE scores reported significantly more severe hot flashes, sleep problems, mood symptoms, and sexual difficulties. Their overall quality of life during menopause was consistently worse across every measure the researchers tracked. This isn't just correlation for the sake of correlation. There are real biological mechanisms that could explain this connection. Chronic early stress changes how our stress response system develops. It affects inflammation patterns, sleep architecture, and pain sensitivity, all systems that influence how we experience menopausal symptoms. The study was cross-sectional, so we can't prove that childhood trauma directly causes worse menopause. But the association was strong enough that the researchers are calling for trauma screening in menopause care. The idea is that knowing a woman's trauma history could help doctors understand why she might be struggling more than expected and adjust treatment approaches accordingly. This matters because right now, when a woman reports severe symptoms, the focus is usually on hormone levels and maybe lifestyle factors. But if trauma is playing a role, she might benefit from approaches that address the nervous system's stress response alongside hormone replacement or other treatments. It's a more holistic way of thinking about why menopause hits some women so much harder than others. Finally, that high altitude study I mentioned in the opening. Researchers travelled to Mustang, Nepal, where Tibetan women live at about 12,500 feet above sea level. They wanted to understand how menopause affects the body's ability to handle extreme altitude and low oxygen levels. They tested both pre- and post-menopausal women, measuring how their breathing and heart rate responded when oxygen levels dropped even further. The post-menopausal women showed significantly different responses. Their cardiovascular systems worked harder and less efficiently in low oxygen conditions compared to the younger women. This might seem like a niche finding that only matters if you're planning to trek in the Himalayas, but it actually tells us something important about estrogen's protective effects on the cardiovascular system. At sea level, we know that estrogen loss increases heart disease risk. This study shows that even in extreme environments where bodies are already adapted to stress, losing estrogen still changes how the cardiovascular system performs. The Tibetan women in this study have genetic adaptations that help them thrive at altitude. Adaptations most of us don't have. Yet even with those advantages, menopause still altered their physiological responses. It reinforces just how significant estrogen's protective effects are and why cardiovascular health becomes such a priority after menopause, regardless of where you live.
Thanks for listening to Hot Flasher. We're back tomorrow with more, so don't forget to subscribe. See you tomorrow.